Hello, 5th graders. Welcome to lesson 1.4, Powers of 10 and Exponents. Please pause to write the lesson number and title in your notebook. Today's lesson objective is to read and evaluate repeated factors in exponent forms. Please pause to write the lesson objective in your notebook. This lesson has 2 vocabulary words. The vocabulary words for today's lesson are base and exponent. A base is the number that is going to be used as the repeated factor. In my example over here, the 2 is the base. The other vocabulary word is the exponent. The exponent is the number that tells how many times the base is going to be used as a factor. The exponent is the little number up above, the 5. Please pause to write the lesson vocabulary and definitions in your notebook. Before we move on, I'm going to explain this picture that's over here to the side. It's an exponent. It says an exponent is just a little number telling us the number of selfies that the base takes. So when we think of an exponent, we think of the base number 2, and it's going to take 5 selfies. So that means we're going to multiply 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 because it's itself 5 times. So I have 5 2's. All right, 5th graders, ready with our Unlock the Problems? Let's start our lesson. Expressions with repeated factors, such as 10 times 10 times 10, can be written by using a base with an exponent. The base is the number that is used as the repeated factor, and the exponent is the number that tells how many times the base is going to be used. So in the example, 10 times 10 times 10, we could say that the base is 10, and it's going to be multiplied 3 times because there are 3 of them. So that looks like 10 with a little 3 up at the top. And we know if we multiply 10 times 10, we get 100. And 100 times 10 is 1,000. So 10 with a little 3 up at the top equals 1,000. That little 3 at the top is our exponent. And when we have an exponent, we give it special names. So our word form of that exponent is the third power of 10. Or you might hear people say 10 to the power of 3. You can also write this in exponent form, which would be the 10, the base, with the 3, the exponent up above it. So we have 2 forms that we can write exponents, word form and exponent form. Let's continue on with the activity to find out more about exponents. Below we have some base 10 blocks. Base 10 blocks help us look at place value. The smallest base 10 block is called a cube, and a cube is only worth 1. So when we look at this, we're going to look right here at this first question. How many 1s are in the number 1? Well, we know that there's only 1 of them. If I were to look at how many of them make up a cube, it's only just 1. But if I look at a long right next door, we know that there are 10 cubes in a long. So that says this is 10 1s. We could call that 1 times 10. And if you'll notice, we also have an exponent form of this. It's 10 to the power of 1, which would be 10 times 1. Because they only have 1 10. So how many 1s are in 10? Well, there's 10 1s in a 10. Getting bigger, we have a flat. A flat is 100 1s. Each one of our little cubes in a flat is worth 1. So if we have 10 times 10, that's 100. And I covered it up with my mark, but we write this as 10 with a 2 up at the top because there are 2 10s. And that means we have 100. And then over here on our last one, this is again called a cube, but this cube is different from our first cube because this cube is worth 1,000. And it means that I have 10 times 10 times 10, like on our example up above, because I went from a cube to a flat to a long, and I multiplied each time. So I have 10 times 10 times 10, which I write as 10 to the power of 3. And 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000. And then if we got even bigger, we would want to think how many hundreds are in 1,000. Okay, so if I'm thinking about the number 1,000, how many times does 10 go into it? That would be 10 times, because 10 times 100 would be 1,000. So if I look up here, I want to actually go to this box now, and it says we're going to multiply 10,000 ones. And we're going to do that by multiplying 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So that would be, each one of these is going to be 1,000. And I'm going to need 10 thousands. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to keep going to the side. 7, 8, 9, 10. So instead of having to write that every time all the way out, that gets really long, I know that I have 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So I'm going to call that 10 to the 4th because I have 10 4 times. Let's try that scale again with another problem. It says, hummingbirds beat their wings very fast. The smaller the hummingbird is, the faster its wings. The average hummingbird beats its wings about 3 times 10 to the power of 3 times a minute. How many times a minute is that written as a whole number? So if we think back to 3 times 10 is 30, but this is absolutely not what we want to do because we're not saying 3 times 10, we're saying 3 times 10 times 10 times 10 because that 10 to the power of 3 means I have 10 3 times. So let's work this out 1 10 at a time. So if we had 3 times 10 to the power of 0, that means we have 0 tens. Well, that would be 3 because it's just 3 times that number. Okay, but now the next one we have 3 times 10 to the power of 1. 10 to the power of 1 means that I have 1 10. So 3 times 10 would be 30. Now I have 3 times 10 to the power of 2. So that means 3 times 10 times 10. 3 times 10 is 30, times 10 is 300. Okay, let's keep getting bigger. 3 times 10 to the power of 3 means 3 times 10 times 10 times 10. So 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000, times 3 is 3,000. And you can see that each time that exponent number got bigger, so did my number of zeros, because I'm multiplying by another group of 10. So to answer the question, the average hummingbird beats its wings about 3,000 times per minute. Think about this question that it says below. What pattern do you see? If you look at my green arrows, I pointed out that when the exponent number gets bigger, what happens to the zeros? Be prepared to answer this question in class tomorrow. We've come to the end of our lesson. It's time for the lesson activity. Today's lesson activity says write in exponent form and word form. And I've given you a little bit of help here. So exponent form would be 10 to what power? So you need to fill in this little box right here. How many 10s do I have? And word form would be 10 to the power of what? So that should be the same answer as what's in the little box. That means how many times am I multiplying times 10? Remember that these need to be written in your math notebook and ready to show your teacher at group time. Great job!